Hey guys, welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about Polygon, or Matic, depending on how you like to call it. If you like this kind of content, you should definitely check out our channel, like, comment, and subscribe, follow this video to the end, check out our Patreon. Before we continue, I just got to say, this is not financial advice, we don't accept liabilities for losses that you might incur, and all these videos are here for strictly news and research and information purposes. So with that in mind, you'll be able to enjoy the subject of the video, and that's Polygon, which has been a very hot topic of discussion for the last little while, simply because it's been Ethereum's #1 layer 2 solution. And that's a pretty big thing to say, like layer 2. What does that even mean? And we're going to get into that momentarily. I just want to briefly just go over the tokenomics of Polygon. So we'll call it Matic, we'll call it Polygon, however you want to call it. You'll probably hear me say both throughout this video. Right now, the market cap is at about 13 million with a supply of about 7 billion, right? And normally, for me, I usually tell people, like, don't get too sucked into a project with a high supply unless it has a really good reason for being there. And this would be a good example of that, simply because currently, while Ethereum is dealing with scaling issues and, just in general not being up to par with what it could do, something like Polygon has actually come in and been like, hey, we could be a solution on top of Ethereum. And from there, it goes to tell you, like, okay, so now Polygon has attached itself to Ethereum, which means that even though the supply is high, the market cap could potentially go high as well, simply because by attaching itself to Ethereum as a layer 2 solution, it allows itself to actually do more for Ethereum. So by adding to Ethereum's possible applications, it basically creates value within itself. And I'm not going to get too much into the tokenomics of it all, because realistically speaking, like, it's just like any other coin. You could stake it and do a lot of things. Like, there's no like intricacies of the tokenomics, but I do believe in what it's doing, simply because it's solving a lot of problems right now. And the thing about like Ethereum and a lot of other things that are trying to solve the problem or kill Ethereum, they're basically not doing anything right now. They're talking about how they're going to fix it in the future. But the reality is these guys are doing it right now. And I'm going to tell you guys right now, I'm covering the coin on this channel. I saw this coin when it was still at about here in like the 16-cent region. And I called it, I bought it, and I sold it early simply because I just didn't know if I believed in it. I think it was actually even closer to here, right around the 7th. Oh, that's even, no, right. Yeah, right around 7 cents, right here, like around this point. That's when I first bought Polygon. I let it go simply because I thought there was a better place to make. I didn't necessarily lose because around that time I'd found Luxo, so I'm not really complaining. But at the same time too, I do kind of wish I held. And I figured I would let you guys know that, simply because like that's a pretty big amount of gains that I missed by selling early and not just like thinking like, okay, what could this thing be in the future? Because I wasn't someone who really believed in the idea of a layer 2 solution, simply because I believe if the product is good enough, it doesn't need a layer 2. That was my thinking. So I kind of dumped Polygon because around that time, I was actually more bullish on Binance Smart Chain than I was on Ethereum. And while I'm not necessarily against Binance Smart Chain, I just think that right now there's too much legal issues for them to continue even attempting to approach Ethereum's market cap now. And because of those turns of events, I realized, okay, that kind of sucks, because at that point, like, I was more focused on BNB and Ethereum took off and Polygon took off. So, it goes to show, like, not every trade I'll make, even me, someone who's considered like a professional or even a decent trader. I don't even know if I'd call myself a professional, to be honest, because I'm sure there's people that are more qualified. I'm honest enough to accept that. But it doesn't change the fact that I'm better than the average bear, and I made a mistake by selling early. So I figured I'd let you know that little story there. It's obviously not as bad as when I saw Solana at 70 cents and watching it now at like, what, 180 or 200 bucks. That one was really painful to watch, but c'est la vie. Moving on. So what is layer 2 scaling? This is basically what it is explained. And it basically says that like after 2017, that crypto bull market was so heavy duty that the ICOs and the crypto kitties basically clogged up the entire network. And that just goes to show right here that one crypto kitty congested the entire Ethereum network with these ICOs. So it should give you an idea of how much Ethereum is being congested by NFTs. So this kind of leads to why something like Polygon could be valuable or Luxo could be valuable, because it helps to offset some of these transactions. So layer 1 is basically Ethereum. It's a standard base consensus layer, right? Most blockchains have one. They should all have one, realistically, because if there's layer 1, there won't be if there's not a layer 1, there can't be a layer 2. So layer 1 is basically like Ethereum, Bitcoin, like those main staples, right? And then a layer 2 solution would be something like Lightning Network or Polygon in this case. And more or less what it's trying to say is that what a layer 2 does is it adds to the layer 1 without compromising its security, while allowing more transactions to happen on the second layer. Because imagine what it is the first layer can only handle X amount of transactions, right? And what happens is when you make a second layer on top of it, it's not a matter of like it's not a matter of like them being different blockchains. What it is like you'll have the main blockchain running, and then the second layer will basically add to the blockchain. So it's like even though you're transacting in it, it's like instead of it being congesting the first blockchain, you're actually like putting it onto the second one, and then the second one feeds it into the first one in order. So it's like all these things that would be bottlenecked and not happening and causing the network to actually crash are now being laid out on a second, basically layer 2 blockchain, which is basically feeding into the first one. And that's more or less what it allows. It allows for that second layer to create a system that allows for 2,000 to 4,000 transactions per second, which is similar to Visa. And by doing that, it's like you're not technically changing the blockchain. All you're doing is you're adding a layer that you're allowed to basically transact within. And that's why it's like a lot of layer 2 solutions, they got a lot of hype in the last year, because Ethereum is not going to be at Ethereum 2.0 yet. And even when it does hit Ethereum 2.0, it doesn't necessarily mean that layer 2s won't work, because we don't know what bugs Ethereum 2.0 is going to have. We really don't. So a second layer allows for things to basically become, it's kind of like an ace in the hole to say like, okay, like in case things aren't going the way we want, we have that second layer to make sure that things are rolling on that blockchain. And Polygon ended up becoming the main choice for that. And I could see why. And another thing that's interesting is like they're adding in basically what is this called? It's called roll-ups or rolling up. So it's rolling up side chains or side chain transaction to a single transaction and generating a cryptographic proof, also known as a snark. So what it does is like, let's say there's 10 transactions on the second layer, they'll be able to bulk them into one and put them on the first layer. So that way it doesn't waste any space on the blockchain. And that's actually a decent system for doing what it has to do in terms of like allowing Ethereum to work. But, you know, I'm more of a Luxo bull. So for me, I kind of just believe in a new system that's going to unravel. But at the same time, this is the hedging of your bet. So for people that are taking a bet on Luxo, something like Matic would be the hedging of your bet against Luxo failing or Ethereum, you know, taking off. So I figured I'd give you an idea of how scaling works. Next, we're going to get into the Polygon website, Ethereum's Internet of Blockchains. So basically, like they're saying, like Polygon will be the Internet of Ethereum. So if Ethereum is the EVM, Polygon is just what allows you to interact with it on a much more seamless and, you know, like interoperable environment. And like you could see here, they're rolling up, they're coming up with solutions for a lot of the issues that Ethereum has and some of the challenges that it has, right? And I could see why a lot of people went to it. And the other thing that's beautiful about Polygon is because it's a layer 2 solution is because it's a layer 2 solution, it allows for people to basically interact with the blockchain as if it was Ethereum. And it's pretty awesome because the way it interacts with dApps and other things, it's kind of like how Ethereum should be. And you're seeing a lot of people getting onboarded into Polygon right now simply because they're able to offer more on the Ethereum platform without necessarily changing the Ethereum platform. And as you can see right here, these are the founders, right? So you got the core 4 over here. And they've all basically earned their reputations on Polygon. But this guy right here, Sandeep Nelwal, this guy particularly for me stands out simply because I mentioned him on another project called Polytrade, which we've covered before on the channel and we'll be covering again very soon. And he's basically a co-founder of Polygon, and he went pretty heavily behind Polytrade. So I figure this kind of community, if they're going to stick together, it's likely to do good for both parties. But I wanted to mention that's more or less what Polygon's up to. If you go to the About page, who we are, why we're doing this, the vision. Oh, no, hold on, we already covered that. And you go here, the technology. So basically what they're saying is they're trying to create a foundation for the internet of value and people in a way that allows the people to access their data and protect their data and be able to function in a decentralized environment without the need for a centralized entity controlling everything. And I personally think that's actually valuable, and it's a good core concept to go behind. And you can see right here, like there's the Polygon chains, and then there's Ethereum standalone chains that basically work with each other to basically create the system that you want, right? So the standalone networks, they are basically like you're using like the Ethereum for the security, because right now it's probably the second most secure network other than Bitcoin. And then Polygon just builds upon it in a environment that utilizes the security of a POW system like ETH is currently on, while being able to use a POS system to, really cement the two together. And when it goes into the architecture and layering, like I'm not a coder and I'm not someone who could really explain the technology farther than I currently have. But personally, I could understand based off of a lot of how it's been showing things, it's going to be pretty valuable. Now, that's the main thing that I've pulled out from my understanding of layer 2 solutions. Another thing too that Polygon is doing is they started doing something. It's called a ZK protocol developer. So it's a zero knowledge, and what that allows this network to do is it allows for it basically allows for privacy to be respected on these networks. And there's particular industries such as like health, finance, communications, so on and so forth, where the privacy needs to be respected. And something like a zero knowledge protocol could actually be very valuable for any network because it allows for a little bit more privacy in a network, right? And I'm someone who respects privacy, you know what I mean? Like I personally think that everyone has the right to their privacy and everyone should have their privacy. I think the only people that shouldn't have privacy are like the government, because the government works for the people. People shouldn't just be working for the government, right? So technically the government, considering it's a system that's comprised of taxpayer money, that for me is the system that should be the most public. So as long as something like a ZK doesn't get used in government affairs, for me, I believe in zero knowledge protocols. But that's something that's a little bit more, I guess, like muddy to speak about, and it's something I'd probably even cover on my Patreon to speak about like the speculation of these kinds of protocols and the global economy. But we'll cover that on a separate video. But I wanted to mention that. So something that's anonymous like that is important for the average folk. Governments, especially considering that they've been lying a lot recently, they should be on a very public blockchain that everyone could see at all times. Next thing. The other thing I wanted to mention that makes me bullish about Polygon and why I kind of believe in it, regardless of me missing the major price point that I saw, was this. There's a lot of metaverses being built on Polygon right now. And the reason being is that Polygon's able to offer a little bit more than Ethereum can and remove some of the congestion for things to actually happen. And that is why a lot of people have been moving towards it. And like, there's a few projects here, and I'm not going to take away any merit from them, but I'm particularly going to mention two that I'm really interested in. And the first one is Aavegotchi. This one, I'm actually considering getting an Aavegotchi and getting land and getting into it. So it's very interesting. And this one right here, Decentraland. This one I was supposed to buy land. I mentioned it in my NFT videos. I was supposed to buy land. Sadly, I slightly missed the boat, and it kind of hurt me. And I'm not going to negate the fact that, okay, fine, I missed the boat. I'm not going to say don't buy it, but if you can, Decentraland is probably a decent thing. And the fact that it's being partnered with Polygon and they're using it as a side chain because of the fees on Ethereum could kind of show that Polygon's earning its reputation. Now, here's the other thing too, right? So it's like talking about that, you know, not to say that these projects don't look interesting. They kind of do, especially this one here, Vulcan and Terra. They do look interesting, but I mentioned Aavegotchi and Decentraland simply because Aavegotchi is the next one I'm thinking about. Decentraland is the one that I missed and I'm still thinking about. So I'm giving you that info. The other thing too I wanted to mention was Blocktopia is also being built on Polygon. So Blocktopia secured funding from Polygon, and I think you guys have seen my videos on Blocktopia. I'm pretty bullish on it. I believe in the project for what it is. I have my reservations about some of the people behind it, which I've mentioned, but it doesn't mean that I'm biased enough to say that there's not an opportunity here. So the fact that Polygon got behind Blocktopia, and this has been a little while, gives me, I guess, like another reaffirmation as to Polygon's potential future, right? And it even mentions here, like, these are some of the reasons why, you know, some of the reviews on Blocktopia, but we'll do that in another video. And for here, it just mentioned that Mana could move between Ethereum and Polygon now, meaning that Mana platform, like the Mana platform, Decentraland, could flow between Ethereum and Polygon simply because now it's a layer 2 solution and it's going to be a second transacting system within the network. So that right there, considering that Polygon, or rather Decentraland, has a $6 billion market cap, that could be flowing in and out of Polygon, adding to its potential value. Last one too was this right here. It was another article on Polygon from the Thai, and it just gives a little deep dive on some of the things that it's doing. And it was definitely very interesting because it gave us an idea of how the tokenomics tie up. So it's like the ecosystem gets 23%, foundation 22%, launchpad sale 19%. And it kind of gives you an idea of what's going on here. So it's a pretty standard thing. It's not anything that's like kind of weird. Kind of like the Blocktopia tokenomics, where 98% of the tokens are in one wallet, which is definitely weird, but you know, I'm covering that on my Patreon exclusive video to give you my personal opinion. If you want to hear it, you should definitely sub to the Patreon and go check it out because it's coming out soon. Now, basically here, it's just giving you the basic tokenomics, but here's the other thing that's interesting. The Polygon ecosystem, and it talks about the most active dApps. You have QuickSwap, Sushi, 1inch, and Aave. So those are the ones I know the most by name. And QuickSwap, what's interesting about QuickSwap is one of the founders of QuickSwap actually went to start Polytrade. And you're going to hear about that in the next video about Polytrade. So that's why I kind of wanted to cover Polygon today, because I figure, you know what, it's important that I cover Polygon, because if I'm going to be bullish about a side thing that's being built on Polygon, I should mention the main project to you guys and start talking to you about what's going on. Even if, you know, like this isn't necessarily going to be my biggest bag, but it will be a bag that I'm considering holding simply because I believe in what it could do in the meantime while Luxo or Ethereum fix its current problems. Now, more or less, that's I guess that's my breakdown of this project. If you guys want to see more about Polygon or anything like that, or if you have questions, definitely leave a comment in the comment section. Like, comment, and subscribe if you followed us to the end. Definitely check out our Patreon, and yo guys, our Discord is getting ready to launch. We've done a pre-opening round that we're about to start, and in the new year we're launching it with a few other interesting things for Q1. So take care.